Welcome to Chapter 1 of After the Rain. Look down on this scene, Rachel writes in her notebook. 3 people in a kitchen, sitting around a table. A man, a woman, and a girl. She glances up, squints at her parents. The 3 people are together, but not together. The man and the woman know the girl is there, but they don't really see her. They see her, but they don't really know her. Rachel chews on her pen. Should she name them? No, it pleases her to call them the man, the woman, and the girl. The kitchen is long and narrow. Cupboard doors stand open. A mop leans against the wall. The calendar is still turned on. She looks at the calendar over the wall phone. August, although it's now late September. Okay, not bad. What next? She studies the linoleum floor. Her mother is a bear about floor washing. Should she put in that the floor is clean? Yawn. The floor, she writes after a moment, is fiercely clean. The toaster oven gleams and glows from a recent polishing. Should she write more for the opening? Or is that already too much? How do you know when to stop? She is working on a story about her family. She hopes it will be a story. So far, in almost 2 years of dedicated writing, something in the journal every day, she has managed only to write opening sentences, first paragraphs, the beginnings of stories. But even if she finished them, would they be real stories? Aren't stories supposed to come out of your imagination? How will she ever become a writer if the only things she can think to write about are her mother, her father, herself? 2 years ago, the writer Wilda Sikora came to the school to talk to Rachel's class in the library. Rachel had read all of Wilda Sikora's books and made sure to get a seat close to the front of the room. You don't know how much you have inside you, Wilda Sikora said. I know there's somebody in this room who wants to be a writer. She pushed her glasses up on her nose, looked around the room. Whoever you are, don't be afraid of what's inside you. Don't be afraid to invent, to be original, to be yourself. Sitting hunched over, her arms around herself, Rachel knew those words were meant for her. A space seemed to open in her mind. Light poured in, a clear, white light, and for a moment she stood in the center of that light. Now she reads over what she wrote. No good. These words are meant for the wastebasket. She crosses out everything she's written, then tears the page out of her notebook and rips it into little scraps. Her mother looks across the table. Oh, Rachie, your beautiful writing. Was it something for English class? Rachel keeps a shielding arm poised over the top of her notebook. Her parents are having their after-supper cup of coffee. The 3 of them are elbow to elbow. How cozy that sounds, like a regular little Cosby family. Every Thursday night, Rachel watches the Cosby Show with amazement in her heart. Look at that smart, beautiful mommy. Look at that wise, funny daddy. Look at those gorgeous sisters and cute hunk of a brother, all of them saying clever, funny things to each other faster than anyone can say call a family conference. Rachel's family has never had anything remotely like a family conference. They hardly ever say anything witty to each other, and nobody is a lawyer or a doctor. Her mother is a secretary. Her father runs a little accounting business. Her oldest brother, Phil, is a car salesman, and her other brother, Jeremy, is presently a waiter. She flips to another page in her notebook. She has an English theme to write, which she's been resisting for days out of sheer boredom. How is it possible that in 10th grade they are still being asked to write how I spent my summer? Maybe she ought to write a letter to Mr. Esparza, he of the dark eyes and white linen suits. Dear Mr. Esparza, Sir, mercy on us, your helpless English students. Could you not find it in your heart to assign something better for us to write about than how we spent our summers? As you have been known to say, a more enlivening topic? This is a plea from the heart. I fear that one day soon you will walk into English 10 and find nothing but a heap of bored corpses drooped over their notebooks. Yawningly yours, Rachel Cooper. Remember me? I'm the one who sits in the third seat in the first row. How I Spent My Summer by Rachel Cooper. My summer was busy and blah blah blah. I was fortunate and blah 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 to be able to work in my father's office. As my parents both work and I am too old for camp, I was blah 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 that would be bored this summer. But that wasn't the blah 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 blah. How I Spent My Summer by Rachel Cooper. In brief, my summer was much like other summers, long, hot, and basically uninteresting. I worked a few hours every week in my father's office, filing papers and sweeping the floor. I swam in the high school swimming pool, wrote letters to my brother, and cooked many meals for my parents, all of which were overly appreciated. Overly appreciated, you say? Yes, I say. My parents are lavishly appreciative of any little thing I do. This might sound wonderfully satisfying, but in fact, it's embarrassing and even slightly infuriating. It's so patronizing. I often have the feeling that what they praise so highly in me is only their own startled realization that their daughter is an actual living, breathing person and not just a creature who's dropped into their lives from outer... She can't write this theme. It's impossible to be original or inventive. Besides, she knows how she spent her summer. What's on her mind is how she will make it through the rest of her life. How will she ever become something other than what she is now? What am I going to do with my life? She says into the air. Her father, having just forked a large piece of chocolate cake onto his plate, mumbles through the crumbs and points to his mouth. Sometimes Rachel thinks he looks like a Buddha. The rounded, fat shoulders, the little, fat breasts, the puffy cheeks. Other times he appears to her as a baby whale in a yellow sport shirt, voluminous checkered pants. He wipes his rosebud mouth. Your whole life is a big subject, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. One thing at a time, Mouse. Things will work out. You'll see. Rachel ignores that. He called her Mouse. Waits for more wisdom, but that's it. One thing at a time. As a wise saying, it rates maybe a 4. Too bad. Rachel feels the need for wisdom. She's 15. That's not being a kid anymore, and it frightens her how much she doesn't know. What's life all about anyway? Oh, okay, you go to college, you get your degree, you find a job. And after that, what? You get married? Do the same thing day after day? Worry about money? And suppose you don't get married, then what? What do you do besides work? And all that aside, there are other things that are pretty frightening in the world. Why do so many people everywhere, every day, get hurt in so many terrible ways? Why is there a song called After the Bomb Blues? Why can't she be sure she'll be grown before the world blows up? And even if she does make it, does she want to? Does she want to be old? Don't worry about it. She can't help worrying. She worries about lots of things. Big things like the future, and smaller things like her looks, her lack of a social life. She doesn't regard it as admirable that this stuff worries her almost as much as the nuclear bomb, but the truth is she probably puts in more actual worry time on her looks than on the bomb. In the middle of the night, she's capable of waking up and going full speed ahead on truly small potatoes worrying. What will I wear to school tomorrow? Oh, God, the backs of my arms are like alligator skin. Why did Jeff What's-His-Face walk by me in the hall without even a nod? Maybe she has to worry about something. Maybe it's in her genes, worry genes, of which she must have received a full dose from each parent. Concentrate, Rachel tells herself, looking down at her notebook. Do not think. Write this theme. Her parents are talking, but that's not the trouble. She often does her homework to the background music of their voices. Background music. How sweet that sounds, as in violins and cellos. They took blood from my father, her mother is saying in a high, worried voice. Manny, you should have seen his arm. Shirley's voice cracks on certain notes, and she seems to go breathless as she speaks. Blood? Rachel's father says in a rumbly, wheezy, but equally anxious voice. They took blood from Izzy because he had a bellyache? What sense does that make?
Well, his age, Shirley says breathily. I suppose the doctors want to be extra careful.
Rachel studies her mother. Shirley is wearing her at-home clothes. Baggy, faded blue sweatshirt, rumpled denim jeans. Her behind is enormous, her legs long and thin. She gets up, clatters the cups into the sink, runs the water hard.
They must have jabbed Daddy in 12 places.
She snorts through her long, thin nostrils, and Rachel thinks that if her father is the whale in the family, then her mother must be the goose in the family. The moose. As for herself, that's easy. Moose and whale produce mouse. Mouse, the awful nickname. Her father stuck it on her at birth. She has heard the story innumerable times. How no one knew her mother was pregnant, including her mother.
My age? Who thought about being pregnant at 46? My baby days were over. So I thought, but somebody else
thought otherwise. A flirtatious little look at Rachel's father.
And then I'm heavy-set and my weight goes up and down all the time, so I thought I was gaining a little weight until you began kicking inside me. Was I surprised?
At which point Rachel's father always says, and then when you were born, Rachie, this little tiny hairless pink thing I said to your mother, no wonder you didn't know, Shirley. Look at this mouse you've been carrying around inside you. Rachel dreams of delivering an ultimatum.
Shirley, Manny, parents, from this moment on, you will stop calling me Mouse.
They will look at her, open-mouthed, confused.
Either I'm a mouse or a human being.
Applause. These words will go down in history. Scholars will study them. Books of quotations will always include them. Everyone, everywhere will know these famous, stirring words. Everyone except Shirley and Manny. Because Rachel will never say it, not that way. She cannot bring herself to tell her parents straight out how she feels. She thinks about telling them all right, but how she thinks about it is not something very hard to do. But how she thinks about it is something very hard to do. Exceptionally difficult. Impossible. Her friend Helena doesn't agree.
You want to tell them, Rachel? Just do it.
Tell them. Okay, that's fine for Helena. Life holds no unnecessary complications for her. Besides, she can say things like that and not upset people. Helena's got charm to spare.
Do it, Helena, Rachel tells herself. Don't worry about things in advance. Try to be charming and cute. Maybe you haven't noticed, folks, but I'm not a mouse, folks.
But she's not a rat either. And as easy as it might seem to Helena to tell her parents any little thing, Rachel knows the moose and the whale are different. They are old. They are as old as Helena's grandparents. Older, actually. They are grandparents themselves. And they are sensitive. Her father cries easily when hurt by one of his children. Her mother's face takes on a bluish tinge. They only have to talk about Rachel's brother Jeremy. For instance, Jeremy with his spectacular ability to louse up his marriages and his jobs. And there's Manny, leaking tears like a faucet. And Shirley, so blue in the face, she seems to require immediate mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. No, Rachel isn't about to tell them to stop calling her their private pet name for her. They are old and full of trouble, and she is young and strong and has the oppressive power to hurt their feelings. And just then, to demonstrate the truth of her thoughts, her father turns to her with a sweet expression. So, Mouse, how's the homework coming?
You call me Mouse again? Give me Rat. Give me Wolf. Give me anything but Mouse.
It's okay, Rachel says. You're going to be on the honor roll again. You going to be on the honor roll again, sweetheart? She nods. And then her mother turns to her, too.
Are you going to wash your hair tonight?
Why do you bother her? Her father asks. If she wants to wash her hair, she'll wash her hair. She doesn't need you to remind her. Shirley passes her hand over Rachel's head.
Her hair looks so pretty when it's clean. Pretty and shining.
She leans toward Rachel, chin in hand. You're pretty, Rachie. You remind me of my cousin. The same wonderful smile. Manny, doesn't she remind you of my cousin Estelle?
Mouse is prettier.
Estelle was so pretty.
Did I say she wasn't? I only said Mouse is prettier. Look at her. Look at that pretty child.
They beam on her.